Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. Today we've got a broken coffee mug and we're going to get this all sorted. Now if you're in the computer repair industry or just a hobbyist, I'm sure you've probably faced this issue before. So I'm going to show you 3 different methods to fix this and tell you my preferred options and why some of the other options are not as good. So firstly, just a quick preface. I've already cleaned up this coffee cup from the moment of breakage. You usually end up with sort of brown stains in them, and that you want to clear up before you reuse it. So I've already cleaned mine, so it's nice and clean inside. So yeah, I've got a little bit of water in the bottom, but that's not a big deal. Okay, so in my shop I solved this problem with a coffee maker. So this is something that's probably more familiar to people on the other side of the pond from here. The one I use is a Philips Sensio machine. These offer a pretty good balance of ease of use, cost effectiveness, and the overall result. So this particular machine takes these things called coffee pods, which is basically a tea bag with coffee in it instead of tea leaves. So I use the dark roast blend. Simply because if you use the dark roast blend, you can use the single pod for an entire mug, whereas you are supposed to use the double pods for an entire mug. So by using the darker roast for the stronger stuff and then diluting it a bit more, I get to make my coffee for half the cost. So let's load one of those up in there, and we're going to go ahead and hit the full coffee button. So as you can see, toward the end, we're down to more or less just hot water going in there now. So that's just going to dilute down the strong blend a little bit, just to make it a bit more palatable. There we go, we're done. And I've just turned it off just so it doesn't reheat the water, save some power and all that. Okay, right, so what we've got now is a beautiful, fresh, black coffee. Now, the other thing I like about these Sensio pods is you get a little bit of froth on top, which just makes it a bit more pleasant. So, there are 2 things that you can do with the coffee at this point. You can add sugar and/or milk. My personal preference is to take it black with 1 sugar in it. Now this is because I like things to be a little bit sweeter, so I add in 1 sugar. You shouldn't be adding more than 1 sugar to fresh coffee like this, quite frankly. If you add more than 1 sugar, you're just going to ruin the taste of the coffee, and you're just going to end up with something that is ridiculously oversweet. If it's still a little bit too bitter with 1 sugar in it, add a little bit of milk, and that will also mellow it out a bit more without completely destroying the flavour. However, black with 2 sugars is a disgusting habit that you must break. I myself strayed into that habit for quite a long time, where I just needed something to give me a kick in the mornings. However, I have gone back down to 1 sugar, and I'm very grateful for it. It tastes a lot better. So, that is method 1 all sorted out. Now, on the subject of sugar, there are a couple of different types of sugars you can use. The most common one that you'll see people using is just white sugar. White sugar is peasant here. What you want to use is brown demerara sugar. This is the best stuff to put in coffee, so we're just going to stick in 1 rounded teaspoon. This is kind of a lame teaspoon, so I'm going to put in just a little bit more. And we're going to stir that in. And that's going to give us a nice, crunchy, aromatic coffee. Whereas when you put in white sugar, that's just basically sweetener, and it's horrid stuff. I would not use it unless I had no other choice. Spot on. That is 1 fixed mug. Love it. Now, my favourite option for repairing our broken coffee mug is using a cafetiere, also known as a French press. Now this allows you to make fresh coffee that tastes really, really good with very little effort or cost. A lot of people are not a big fan of coffee makers and things like that because you've got to invest in the machine and then you've got to go buy the refills and so on and so forth. Whereas to make fresh coffee with a cafetiere, all you need is one of these, and you can get them for less than £5. And one that's glass and metal like this one will cost you about a tenner. Really cheap, really simple. And you can either use whole beans that you've ground yourself like I do, or you can use pre-ground coffee that comes in the bags that look just like this, but it's ground coffee instead. And either or is perfectly acceptable. Ground coffee, you tend to use less of it, so it works out cheaper, and there is more of a selection available. However, I like the ritual of grinding my own beans, and I do that using a small electric grinder like this. So let's get some fresh beans in there and make a brew. So we'll just do a small amount, and this small amount of beans that I've just poured will be enough to make, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 coffees. And we'll just push the air out of the bag and stick a clip on top of that to keep it fresh. The other great way about grinding the beans yourself like this is you get that amazing fresh ground flavour. There we go, look at that. It smells amazing, absolutely amazing. So I use a very generous scoop. When I have pre-ground coffee, I use a level spoon. Because it's finer, you need less of it. Whereas I do a sort of medium coarse ground when I'm grinding my own beans. And the advantage of that is that less of it gets around the side, so you get less silt at the bottom of the coffee. However, conversely, you need more of it to get the same strength. And now we're going to throw in some boiling water. And perch the filter just on top like that, just so it's just submerged slightly. I'm going to leave that for a couple of minutes. And while we do that, I'm going to grab a mug. Okay, now we've given that a short while to brew. I'm just going to give it just a little poke just to disturb the coffee in there, just so it clouds up, and then we slowly press down. And now we pour. And there we go. Look at that golden brown, beautiful coffee. That's excellent. What I love about making coffee with a cafetiere is that because you've got such a wide selection of different coffees, you can pick and choose different ones and try different flavours. So this is the current one that I currently use. This one you can get from Tesco. This is a strength 4 out of 5, which is normally what I go for. I've discovered that the weaker coffees tend to have a mellower flavour but a much stronger aroma, whereas the stronger coffees, they are, you can taste them more, but they have less aroma to them. And I found 4 is a really nice, moderate sweet spot. So I always try to go for 4 when I see it. Then you can also get like sort of lazy Sunday blends and stuff like that that are also nice and tasty. And the cafetiere, now we're finished with this, we'll just rinse this out in the sink and it's ready to use again. Then once a week, every now and then, we just pull the filter out, unscrew the base, and these layers will split apart and we can give those a proper clean now and then just to keep it nice and fresh. However, other than that, a basic rinse in the sink is all you need before that's ready to use again. Nice and simple, very little mess, no fuss. Lovely. Okay, so this brings us back to our third option. Now this is the last resort one, the one that I resort to when I have no other choice, and that is instant coffee. Now instant coffee is basically battery acid that you then sweeten or add milk to the point where it's tolerable. However, the coffee mug is mission critical, so you got to drink. So now to do this, we're going to need hot water and instant coffee. So I have a kettle, which is another device that the Americans are probably not so familiar with. This is a simple water boiling device. So I put some water in it. Let's turn that on, get that up to boiling temperature. Now, There are two main variants of instant coffee. There's actually three. There's regular, there is gold blend, and then there is decaf. Now, if you want to drink a hot drink in the evening that's not going to keep you awake, it's perfectly acceptable to drink decaf coffee. It's a nice drink to mellow out in the evening after dinner. However, we're having none of that stuff in here because I got to work. So Nescafe Original, or just the very dark brown variants of it, that is not even coffee, so don't even go there. I think less of any person who drinks original coffee. Gold blend gives a much richer and smoother flavour, so it is definitely tolerable. So the kettle's going to make some noise now, so while we do that, I'm just going to measure out a bit of instant coffee into the mug. About 1.5 teaspoons is the magic amount in my experience. 2 is too much, 1 is not enough. You'll notice that I leave the foil on mine. Because I don't use my instant coffee very often, I leave the foil on it to try and keep it fresh for as long as possible. The kettle will turn off automatically, but I tend to just click them off when it starts boiling anyway because I'm impatient. Alright, so our water is boiled. Let's go ahead and pour that in. If you're super impatient with your coffee, you could add a little bit of cold water to the top to cool it all off so you can drink it sooner. Adding milk will also cool it down. So as you can see, our instant coffee doesn't have any froth on, and it's literally just this ominous looking black liquid. And yes, it's highly acidic and it's not very pleasant as it is. Quite frankly, I'm not sure how anyone can drink black instant coffee with nothing added to it. But coffee is a choice. You can have it however you want, and I respect that, unless it's original. Right, now if I were drinking an instant coffee, I would add 2 sugars to it and nothing else. Now, I know I've previously mentioned that 2 sugars is a terrible, terrible thing, but this is battery acid, so we need to make it palatable. Alternatively, you could opt for 1 sugar and some milk, or you could just add some milk to it. Just anything that is not this will do you absolutely fine. So that is our solution there. And so the great thing about instant coffee is that you can just leave it in the cupboard, and if all else fails, it'll be sitting there ready for you. If you're particularly paranoid, if you can't live without milk in your hot drinks, then you could also either have some UHT milk, which lasts for like a year in the cupboard, or you could also have coffee whitener, also known as coffee creamer, such as Cafe Mate. What that will do, that is literally just it's effectively powdered milk with a little bit of other stuff added into it. And that will give you milk in powdered form that sits in the cupboard for years and years and years. So I often go for that option as well. It's not pretty, but it'll do when you're stuck. And there it is, we have one fixed coffee mug. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for 100 episodes of Let's Fix Computers. Hit that like button and tell me in the comments how you take your coffee. Unless it's Starbucks. Don't comment about Starbucks. I didn't actually add anything to this.